The vote closed, and the chamber lights turned the color of a wound, and Mira Calvert watched the declaration cross her console without letting her hands leave the armrests. Around the great ring of the Concordance floor, delegates from 30 seated species raised their voting spines in unison, and the motion carried against a single world. War against Earth. The speaker of the Concordance, a tall Selene called Orun, whose voice had never once risen in 40 sessions, read the terms into the record while his mandibles clicked out the cadence of certainty. Humanity would disarm, submit to orbital administration, and cede its industrial belts. Mira, the only human permitted on the floor, said nothing. She simply reached forward and switched off her translator, and the small red light on her collar went dark. Orun paused. A human who stopped listening was not in the script. "You will address the chamber," he said. "You will accept the terms or reject them and accept the consequence." Mira stood. She was a logistics attach, not an admiral, and she had spent 6 years inside this building learning exactly how it breathed. She knew which committees controlled the jump relay grid, which species fed the shared fuel exchange, which delegations had quietly stopped paying into the reserve because they assumed Earth would pay for everyone. She knew the Concordance the way a woman knows a house she has cleaned for years. "You've declared war," she said, letting the floor microphones carry her unamplified voice. "I only want to make sure you understand what you've bought." Orun's spines flattened, which in his people meant patience worn thin. "We command 400 worlds and the fleets of 30 species. You command one planet under sanction. There is nothing to understand." "There is one thing," Mira said. "Now you will learn how it's held together." She keyed a sequence into her console. It was not a weapon. It was a resignation. In the same instant, across 17 orbital stations that Earth's engineers had built and maintained for the Concordance across 3 decades, human maintenance crews stopped work and walked to their shuttles. The jump relay grid did not explode. It simply stopped receiving its scheduled recalibration, and a jump grid that is not recalibrated does not fail loudly. It drifts. The first sign came within the hour. A Selene courier attempting to jump from the capital ring to the outer fuel exchange arrived 4 light days off its mark, alive but stranded, its crew calling for a rescue that would take a season to reach them. Then a grain convoy feeding the inner colonies missed its window and scattered across empty space. Orun watched the report stack on his own console and understood, slowly, that the war he had declared had no front. "Restore the grid," he said to Mira, and it was almost a question. "I can't," she answered. "The people who run it just became citizens of a nation you're at war with. You told them their labor was forfeit. They believed you." The Concordance had made one assumption, and it was a reasonable one, which was the worst kind. They had assumed that because Earth's fleets were small, Earth was weak. They had counted hulls and guns, and had not counted the quieter thing, that humanity had spent 3 decades making itself the connective tissue of the entire alliance. Not the muscle. The nerves. Earth's engineers ran the relays because the work was tedious and thankless and nobody else wanted it. Earth's logistics core managed the fuel exchange because humans were patient with spreadsheets in a way the Selene found beneath them. War against Earth meant war against your own circulatory system. Orun did the intelligent thing, which was to adapt fast. He ordered his own technicians onto the relay stations to learn the recalibration. This was the sensible move, and it created a serious problem, because the humans had never sabotaged anything. They had simply left. The stations were pristine, the manuals complete, every procedure documented in shared Concordance script. The Selene technicians read the manuals and found that recalibration was not a matter of following steps. It was a matter of judgment built over thousands of small corrections, knowing which drift to fix now and which to leave, feeling the grid the way Mira felt the chamber. The manuals told them what to do. They could not tell them when. By the third week, the fuel exchange ceased. Not because anyone attacked it, but because the exchange had always run on a rolling set of human adjustments that balanced 200 competing claims, and without those adjustments, the claims collided. Delegations that had voted for war watched their home fleets go dark for lack of jump fuel. The Veth, an insectile species from the outer arc, sent a private message to Earth's shuttered embassy asking, with careful neutrality, whether the matter of the war might be reconsidered. Mira read that message in a Concordance guest suite where she was, technically, a prisoner of a species now unable to feed its own capital. She did not gloat. She sent it up the line to Earth and waited. Orun came to her himself, which cost him standing he would never recover. He stood in the doorway with his spines held in the neutral position that meant he had run out of moves. "You will name your terms," he said. "They aren't my terms," Mira said. "I'm a logistics attach. I don't set policy. She let that land. But I'll tell you what happens if you don't lift the declaration. Nothing. That's the whole answer. Nothing happens. No shots. No fleets. Your worlds just keep drifting apart, one missed jump at a time, until the Concordance isn't an alliance anymore. It's 400 worlds that used to be able to reach each other." This was the irreversible thing, and she knew it as she said it. She could have asked for Earth's independence and gotten it. Instead, she asked for the whole grid, permanently, written into treaty. Earth would run the connective tissue of the Concordance not as a favor but as sovereign right, and no vote of the chamber could ever again touch it. It closed off, forever, the fiction that Earth was a member like any other. Earth would be the thing the Alliance could not live without, openly. And everyone would know it. Orun understood he was not being conquered. He was being made dependent, in daylight, with his signature on it. "The Chamber will never ratify that," he said. "The Chamber declared war 3 weeks ago and hasn't been able to convene since," Mira said. "Half your delegates can't reach the capital. You don't need the Chamber. You need the grid. And the grid needs us." He signed, not because he was beaten in the field, but because the alternative was watching 400 worlds forget how to touch. The human engineers went back to the stations the next morning, and the first thing they did was recalibrate a relay that had drifted so far it took 11 attempts to lock. When it locked, a stranded Selene courier crew 4 light days out felt their jump drive answer for the first time in weeks, and they wept, though no human ever saw it. Mira left the guest suite and walked back onto the chamber floor, which was nearly empty now, most delegates still marooned in their own systems. Orun was there alone, reading the drift reports as they slowly reversed. She sat across from him and switched her translator back on, and the small red light returned to her collar. "You didn't win," he said. "You didn't fire a single shot." "No," she agreed. She watched a relay come back green on the shared board, then another. "We just stopped holding the ceiling up, and you finally looked at what was holding it." Outside the tall windows, in the dark above the capital, a supply convoy that had been scattered for 3 weeks found its corridor again and began, one ship at a time, to come home.